everybody, and welcome today to joining us as a panel of developers and the designers of Crossways Farm Village. We're very, very excited to introduce you to the concept of new ruralism as we talk about Crossways Farm Village this morning. And thank you so much to everybody that's joined us, and thank you to the panel. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get going. If you'll notice at the bottom of your screen, there's a box that says chat. If you click on that, it'll bring up a chat column, and you'll be able to send us any comments or, just welcome yourself to the event. Further along your screen, you'll see there's a box that says Q&A. That enables you to send any questions. So you can either send your questions in the Q&A box, or you can send your questions in the chat box, whichever you find more comfortable. Thank you to those who've already sent some questions through. We will tackle them during the course of the morning. And then further to that, during the course of the morning, we will also be running 3 polls. For those of you who haven't answered a poll before, one's just popped up quickly there. You can have a look and you can select your answer, and we will relay that information back to you towards the end of the webinar. So just a little bit of a running order. We're going to do a quick hello from the panel so that you know who you're talking to and who's with us this morning. We will run through the presentations, and we'll end up the morning with the questions, as I mentioned before. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Chris Mulder, who is the brains and the ambition and the talent behind Crossway Farm Village. Perhaps you can just say a quick hello to our audience this morning. Dr. Chris.
Good morning. Thank you, Louise. Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, my name is Chris Mulder. I've been working on issues like this for the past 40 years to the month today, July 1980. We started the company, and we've been working since then on various design issues. But in the last 15 years, I've really been passionate about the rural development in our country. I think there's a huge opportunity for rural development if one can get through the applications and the approval systems. I've tried for 10 years in the Western Cape. It didn't succeed. And then we moved on to the Eastern Cape, where the concept was accepted, and that's how we started Crossways Farm Village. It's about rural development. It's about enduring value and stuff that I'll talk to later when I get the chance.
Fantastic. And then Steph, over to you. Perhaps you can just introduce yourself without your sound, Steph.
Thanks, Louise. I'm Steph Mulder. I'm very much involved in a director at CMII Architects. We're based in Knysna. I've worked with Chris for 20 years and a team of architects, landscape architects, urban designers. Very much involved in the planning of Crossways, together with the architecture. We've been working on various projects all across the coast of Africa, really.
Fantastic. And we're bringing a little international flavor to our event today. So I'd like to introduce you to Robert Fox, who's the development manager. You'll notice the accent. Robert, over to you.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, as Louise said, I'm the panel's resident Texan. I'm the development manager for Crossways Farm Village. I'd worked with this team back in 2016 when I was an intern, and I joined full-time here in January 2020. So I'm excited to be here. I'll give you a little bit more on my background and a little story on how I got involved in this project later on. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. With any project comes community participation. So I'd like to introduce you to Dudley Yannicka. Dudley, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks very much. And welcome everybody to a very exciting project. I've been doing environmental impact assessment work and public participation for the past 22 years. I've been working both nationally and internationally in that field. And I've been involved with Crossways Farm Village right from the inception, right from the start. And I'm very happy to see, the project, looking as we intended it to look. Thank you.
Fantastic. So to round up our panels, we have three other panelists, one being the most important, a homeowner and resident. I'd like to introduce you to Brian van Niekerk, who's not only the CEO of Rhino Group, which has a beautiful home on the estate, but on the development, but is also a homeowner and resident and investor in Crossways. Brian?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Louise.
Brian, your sound is off, if you'd like to.
There we go. Sorry. Good morning, everybody. I would, as the CEO of the Rhino Group, and resident, I think that's the most important. We bought the house Rhino at Crossways right at the beginning when there were no services and that. So I'm Parcel of Crossways together with Chris Mulder, and I'll give you a bit of background, not only of living here, but enjoying time here at a later stage when I get my opportunity. Thank you very much.
With all investments and all developments in towns such as Crossways, it's always important to look at where we're going to create financial sustainability. And that's really where Gavin Mcinnis has come in. He's the CEO of the Orient Express, and he's bringing in a really interesting and dynamic tourism opportunity for long-term sustainability of the project. Gavin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi group, my name is Gavin Mcinnis, and thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in this very, very exciting development. It's a magnificent tract of land. It just holds so much potential, and obviously with the narrow gauge line, the Thesen Islands River Bridge, and then that's a beautiful stretch of land. We'll explain more about the hotel development opportunity later on through the presentation. Thanks very much.
Rounding off our panel is a fantastic creative director, Peter Ware. So what Peter is bringing to the party here is really the message and the look and feel and the beauty and the benefits of moving into a development such as Crossways. Peter, if you would mind introducing yourself.
Yes, I'm Peter Verwey. I'm creative director of Silver Fox, a name not chosen by me, so please don't make the connection. And we're basically in charge of doing the marketing for Crossways. We've been involved in selling out developments all over the world, and especially also obviously in South Africa, and we've won some awards doing so. And this is one of, we've done quite a few, and this is one of the most special ones that I've been involved in, and you're about to find out why.
Thank you so much, Peter. So without further ado, let us first start this webinar with looking at the vision. So what is the vision for Crossways, and what can you expect from as an investor? And I think the very best person on the panel to discuss this vision with us is Dr. Chris Mulder, who has been so engrossed in the concept of new ruralism for many decades, and we're very excited to hear from him where Crossways has grown from and what to expect as an investor. So over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Louise. Yeah, just maybe a little bit of background, which I'm going to discuss with you, and what creates enduring value and why, and what does enduring value consist of in property development. But in the background, and I'm working on it for the last 15 years, my concern about rural development in South Africa, there are different priorities. national priorities like food security, rural development is national security, poverty alleviation, job creation, training, etc., that we all know about. But it all boils down to what creates enduring value and how do we deal with land. And for us, especially as a group, we're working on it for 15 years, is the whatever happened in rural South Africa, and that's where our passion lies. That's where my passion lies and where it's been for a number of years, rural South Africa. But let's just touch on, we all live in places, every one of us. All physical places are real estate. And our response and how do we design and plan it, and the frequency and the manner in which we use it impacted value. If you do not use the land has no value. In the next slide then. And there are 4 values, and you can touch, whether it's a shopping center, whether it's an office block, whether it's a development, whether it's anything of real estate, any place that we live, there are 4 sub-values. And if one of those 4 values are not present, the mall wouldn't be filled with tenants. You won't create taxes, you won't create rent, you won't create, the properties won't grow. So if one of these 4 values, first one is economic value, and then socio-economic value, cultural value, environmental value, and sensory value. And I'll discuss it very quickly. I don't want to waste a lot of time, but those are called the quadruple net values. And if one of these values are missing, the development, the building, the shop is not full. You don't get tenants, it doesn't work, it doesn't create value, the property value doesn't grow, you don't increase the value of the property, and you don't increase the quadruple net value. Next slide. Yeah, there's an art and science, and it takes a dedicated, passionate design team, a collaborative design team. Properties and developments like this doesn't take a single discipline. It takes a host of disciplines, and they need to collaborate. And we've been practicing that for many years, collaborative design. All these people that sit on the panel today mostly have been part of that collaborative process, from socioeconomic, environmental, economic design, urban design, architecture, landscape architecture. It doesn't take a single discipline to create a project like this or any other project. It's not possible. It doesn't take only a planner or only an architect or only an economist or only a developer to do something. It's a collaborative process. It's a collaborative process of passionate people and, of course, a responsible developer. And that's one of the keys. If there's no responsibility, if it's only chasing money, then it's not responsible. You gotta create these 4 values, which I'll elaborate now on the next slide. Remember, it's economic, socio-economic, cultural, environmental value. Economic value is pretty straightforward. It's a strong form of consistent rental income streams, absorption rates, occupancy rates, premium price, capital growth, and tax return. If you're in a property and there's no capital growth, there's no economic value. If there's no tenants, there's no economic value. If there's no buyers, there's no economic value. And the second one, which is very important, is the socio-cultural cultural heritage and the socio-economic values, the space between buildings. How do we treat the spaces between buildings? What happens between spaces between buildings? And I'll get people say, oh, why don't we go eat tonight? And say, where? Let's go to such and such. No, it's not so nice. But that place is nice. Have you ever thought, why is it nice? Why is a place nice? If you go to a place and it's nice, there's socioeconomic value for starters. People like to sit and visit. You go to places and say, some restaurants are empty, some are chock-a-block full. That's part of that niceness and socioeconomic value. The other one is environmental value, which is natural. I mean, it's obvious. You don't take care of the environment won't take care of you. And in today's time and age, we all live in environmental awareness. And if we don't have that environmental value, there's no quadruple net value. You're missing something. You're going to miss out. And then the last thing is, we struggled a bit. I worked with a whole bunch of people on finding this, and especially the old university, my alma mater, where I graduated with a doctorate in land use law and urban design and planning, is sensory value. And people say, what's sensory value? Simple. Sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. You go to a place and people say, wow, look at that view. That's sensory value. Smell that nice food coming out of the kitchen. That's sensory value. And all those four values together creates enduring value. And if that's not there, I repeat myself, if that's not there, you won't have enduring value. You won't get increase in property prices. You don't get increase in socioeconomic value. People won't like to go there. People don't like to go and live there. People don't like to stay there. It's not safe. It's not sound. It's not good. The environment hasn't been looked after. Has it been really looked after? Has the environmental issues been designed? And that comes with the design team. You need to analyze the site. You need to understand, you've got to read the site. You need to understand what the site is telling you before you can start designing. So there comes the collaborative team again, and that's what we achieved, I think, after years and years of struggle to get it declared as the first rural new town. Obviously, you look at accessibility, you look at location, the old property law, location, location, location. And if that's not there, it doesn't work. And hopefully we can demonstrate that what has worked here, if we can go. I would like to go tell you what's not working. Maybe we'll go to the last two slides and the next. In my book, at least, it's not working. And that's the rural to urban migration. What's happening in this country? Because there's no development in rural South Africa, and it's a national priority. Rural development is a national priority. What are we doing about it? That's why we in Crossways. Rural to urban migration uproots the people. It takes the people from rural South Africa hunting a job in town, going to live on the extremities of the urban edges. And people flock to the urban edge to get a job, to get a livelihood, etc. We're thinking, and my thinking and my passion is no, we got to reverse this. And we have an uphill battle all the time. It's an uphill battle all the time. How do we create rural development of significance? How do we get enduring rural developments? As it is going now, it disrupts the lives of people. There's no asset in rural South Africa. And I can show you a sample, before I get to the next slide. And that's why we've been working and bothering for years and years and years. We as a company and as a firm and my team work in that first section outside the urban edge, there where the cow is standing up until the village. Through the millennia, in every part of the world, development is like this little picture. It starts with agriculture and then a single dwelling of a farmers, then a couple of farmers or people live together in what we call today a hamlet, and then a couple of hamlets morphed into or developed into a little village. A couple of hamlets fed a village. It happened in Africa, it happened in Europe, it happened in America, it happened in India, it happened in China. I happened to live in China for 3 years. I've got fairly good knowledge of Chinese development. I've been in India, I've looked at it, I've been in America, South America, Europe, everywhere in the whole world. This is the development pattern. It starts with agriculture, single dwellings, hamlets, and villages. And what we're trying to do is the first rural new town, the first rural new village, contemporary rural new village. And I'll show you the next one, how it fits in the global picture. The next slide. That's a geographical example. The city in the middle and the 4 or 5 towns with an urban edge. We have a land use policy here of an urban edge. And supposedly the urban edge is to help municipalities managing their budgets. But now it's been used as a determinant where you can develop or not. They don't say it is so, but I'll tell you it is so. All the areas between the towns, those yellow bubbles and the green bubbles, the hamlets and the villages, is rural South Africa. That's where we live now at Crossways. That's where 44% of the people in this country lives. And yet there's no plan for develop rural South Africa. And my passion is to show the authorities and show everybody it can work. You can develop rural South Africa in a contemporary way, make it available to everybody. We have small stands, big stands, large stands. Some of our stands are smaller than the stands I'm going to show you now on the next slide. Now, what's that? Fortunately, we're not in that. We don't play in that area because there's no value there. Somebody can tell me if there's value there, if there's environmental value, if there's socio-economic value, if there's socio-economic value, is there sensory value? The guys don't even know where they're going to park if they ever get the money to build a garage. That's what I told the cabinet minister. Sir, you're creating slums as we speak. Some houses face north, some face west, some face south. Doesn't care of the wind. No environmental analysis was done. No land planning was done. No whatever. If these guys get enough money to get a car, where is going to build his garage? Nobody's taking care of that. We have stands in Crossways smaller than these stands, but they look vastly different. We're not playing in the government housing sphere, but we are allowing stands smaller than RDP stands, but on a 2-bedroom house, 3-bedroom house, a garage, a carport, availability planned in a certain fashion. And that's what we'd like to show you. But there's no way this can be, nobody can tell me there's enduring value yet. There's no value. The day the person moves into that house, the value goes only one way, south. And you know, I've been talking to municipalities, I've been talking to the government, let's do something different in rural South Africa. This is on the urban edge, of course. I don't know even where it is. I just took a picture to demonstrate what I'm saying. So I hope that today we can put together something and show you what Crossways is about. I just wanted to put the background together and why do we concentrate on rural South Africa. Obviously, there are certain factors that you have to take into consideration, schools, access, and so on, which is possibly we've got it here. That's why we invested here. But I'll leave it to the rest of the team, and I'll come in if they need me. If they need some gray hair or something, I'll come in when they ask me to come in. Thank you, Louise. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chris. And you're so right. You know, it's the 4 pillars that make up a long-term sustainable development, or a town in this case, that where people can invest, see that capital return, but also have a good quality of life. And you know, now that we understand what Crossways means from an overview, I think let's see how that concept is being interpreted into these 7 integrated nodes. And I think the word integrated is so important in this term, as it integrates both residential, agricultural, commercial, and light industrial. So I'd like to hand over to Steph. And Steph, could you run us through what the opportunities are within Crossways?
Sure, thanks, Louise. Is the master plan, can we get the master plan back onto the, there we go. Yeah, I'll show a couple of slides to give an idea of what Crossways is all about, and Rob, that will speak after me, will elaborate more of what has been achieved over the last year, the physical development that has taken place, and where it's physically heading towards. But I'd like to give a bit more background of what Crossways is about. So just to break down that map a bit, just to orientate everybody, who's somebody dealing with a cursor? Is that Louise? Are you dealing with a cursor there?
Julie, if you could go back to the master plan, that's the previous slide. And
Okay.
And then just we're going to just use your cursor to indicate specific areas that.
Perfect. Okay, so just to understand where Crossways is located, I think that's just very important so that everybody understands where we are. It's between Port Elizabeth, say 35 kilometers away, 20 minutes away from Port Elizabeth, and 25 minutes away from Jeffreys Bay on the N2. So you'll see the east-west road. Yeah, there we go. That's the N2. It almost dissects Crossways. There's a relatively small portion to the south of the N2, but the majority of the property is to the north, 560 hectares. So this is where the double lane highway starts, just after the Thornhill turnoff. The double lane highway towards PE starts, and that's where Crossways, the Crossways turnoff is. That's the intersection where the cursor is now. That is the intersection where you turn into Crossways. It is signposted on the highway. So yes, it's a new rural village. Just if you look at the map, the darker olivey green areas are the gorges. That part of the Eastern Cape and that part of the Southern Cape, Southern and Eastern Cape. Beautiful flat coastal plateau about 220 meters above sea level. And then you have these deep cuts, these deep gorges, and it really it is exactly that. It is gorgeous. Those we have the Crossways Gorge, and then we have the Van Stadens River Gorge on our eastern boundary, where Gavin Mcinnis will talk about the island a bit later. The notorious Van Stadens River Bridge is on the southeastern corner of the site. You can move the cursor there. Yeah, so that's the concrete notorious Van Stadens Bridge. On the northeastern corner of the site is Gavin will have to talk to that, but I think the second highest narrow gauge steel rail bridge, beautiful bridge in the northeastern corner, a state of disrepair. Perhaps Gavin will talk about that as well. The northern boundary is the Apple Train railway line. And on the very southern edge is the R102, the old Cape Town to PE road. So regarding location, the main property law is, I think we're in an extremely well located part of the country. Close to a lot of opportunities. But regarding Crossways itself, so you have the olivey green, which is the reserve, and the nature, let's call it nature reserve. The brighter green areas are the agricultural areas at this moment, mainly cow or dairy pasture. The brighter green areas where the cursor is now is irrigation pivot, all sorts of irrigated and some dryland pastures. And then between the two, between the nature or the gorges and the flat plateau agricultural land, are 7 different areas or 7 nodes, 7 we call them AgriHoods, that make up the whole of Crossways. The area in the middle where the orange is saying Castle Ridge, that is the first area that has started to be developed, and the developer is now finishing off that first AgriHood called Castle Ridge. I think it's just important to show where the Crossways Country Kitchen is, where all the mountain bikers convene over the weekends and sometimes during the week. Where the sales center and the hub is, it's close to the entry, just off of the N2 intersection. So it's each of these AgriHoods have quite a different character. We've only started with the 1, maybe 2 if you include the restaurant. So the idea is that you have these 7 AgriHoods, each one of them with a slightly different character because they're on slightly different terrain. On the south of the N2, it's almost like a rainforest. On the northern side is more like fynbos, and then you have the gorges and you have the plateau. So the idea, and any good place, village, town, place, where, if you can ever imagine, is a place with diversity. You don't want monotony. Everything doesn't feel or look the same. So what we're really striving for at Crossways that sense of diversity, that each node, each little AgriHood has its own character. Okay, perhaps we can move on to the next slide. There we go. So that is the Castle Ridge neighborhood that has been developed. In the middle, you'll see the orange area, which we call the castle, which the whole neighborhood is based around. The castle is a collection of smaller units with some castle corners where you would have some business on ground floor, maybe an office, or a cafe for a B&B on the castle corners. So it's quite a novel idea based on historical castles. That's the first sort of a settlement to essentially make your mark there. That is now being developed and finished off by the developer. So yeah, that gives you an idea of the array of opportunities. Some smaller stands from almost 280 300 square meters through to 1,600 are the green larger sites on the kloof edge. I think important here is everything we do is geared towards responding to the climate and to the nature. You have the beautiful backdrop of the mountain to the north, which is obviously the way you want to orientate all of your houses for climatic reasons. We know that this area, the Eastern Cape, can be inundated with wind at certain times of the year. So we, in the design of the castle and of all of the houses, paramount in the approaches that you can, it's all about outside living. We're still in a moderate climate, but you want to shield yourself from the wind when it does blow. Yeah, so everything we do at Crossways is climatically responsive. Okay, and to the next. I think now I'll show you some graphics. This is more the broader idea of Crossways. So the areas highlighted there is what we call the urban agriculture. So all historical patterns of little AgriHoods or neighborhoods or hilltop towns for that matter, they would all have the agriculture around the town, where the town is relatively compact, very pedestrian friendly, you know, those beautiful towns all along the Mediterranean, but also it's a pattern all across the world. Beautiful African villages with the agriculture. The people go out to the village and do the agriculture outside on the periphery of the town. So that's what the developer is busy with now, the urban agriculture, which is highlighted and overlaid onto that aerial. So you live in the castle, relatively small lock-up and go stand, but you do have the option of producing some food, whether it's veggies or fruit, in a little croft patch or a little urban agricultural patch, say 1,000 square meters. It can be as small as 100 square meters, where you can be in control of your own food production. Going to the next. So that is that first neighborhood, and from a vantage point, from the pivot with the mountain in the background, that is the first 20, 30 houses in the Castle Ridge neighborhood, with a couple of new houses, of course, that have just started. Okay, and to the next. This is typically the visual idea of what the Castle Ridge neighborhood, this once particular, the first neighborhood, will look like. In the foreground are those urban agricultural patches, small little crofters patches, where you can try your hand at being in control of your own food production. So it's always a mixture of houses. The one thing at Crossways is we're typically all over the country, the developments would cater for a singular market, typically whatever, 200 square meter house on an 800 square meter stand. This is not the historical settlement pattern. Everybody does not have the same income group. Everybody is not of the same age. Everybody is not necessarily of the same culture. So all of the villages, all of them would have an array of housing types or opportunities, from small lock up and go for single upstarts, their first house, to an empty nester, which the kids have gone out of the house, to a lot of single family residences. So it's a array of housing types that comprise the hamlet or node or AgriHood. Okay, so that therefore the mixture of houses that you see. This map is what we call the structure map, or the parcel map. So here the whole of Crossways, the 560 hectares, have been divided into the 7 distinct land, almost 7 smaller farms. From south of the N2, Sunny Vale, which is a very forested area, think rainforest, south of the N2. As soon as you cross the N2 to the north, the red area is the hub, where we call it the hub and the gorges. That's where the restaurant is. To the east, the gorges, all of the large small holding like properties, farmstead properties on the gorge. Blue, Crossways itself. Sunny side is the green, close to the railway station. Yeah, so all of the several parts. Let's move on just to a couple of the graphics to illustrate the idea, the character of each of these areas. That is at the train station, at the Apple Express train station, a typical market scene of one of the neighborhood centers. Okay, and the next. Sunnyvale Forest to the south of the N2, forested area, completely different type of environment. Beautiful when you explore Crossways. Going underneath the N2, you're into this whole new realm, a whole new world with a different type of log and timber, relaxed lodge-like architecture. On the sunny side, on the other, one of the other pockets, we call this farmstead pocket. Typically 4, 6, 8 properties, large properties. In the foreground, you'd see maybe even a vineyard, horses on the other farmstead, an organic farmer on the bottom right, and then perhaps a couple of smaller houses in between, in a collective, safe, secure. So everybody's always sort of grouped together. I'm a thorough believer in security is through numbers to a degree. You know, not on top of each other, but close to each other. Okay, and the next. Yeah, quite iconic. Everybody is quite familiar with this graphic, which is being used, what we call the cow crossing. Those that have been to Crossways, that's the dam, the main Crossways dam. And the movement network, we have a lot of, this is the mountain biking mecca of the Eastern Cape, if not the country. So you have cows, you have cycles, you have pedestrians, you have cars, you have all new modes of transport. It's not a car-orientated place. It's made for bicycles and cows, rather. Okay. Next one. So I spoke about the Castle Ridge. That's the first area that have been developed. The next areas that we are opening up to the market is just above the dam. Now this is on the northern slopes facing the mountain. That's where the new Crossways Road, the video which was played in the beginning of the webinar. So this main road goes through what we call the little main street, and that's where the village center will be. So this is the next area that will be open up for the public. Yeah. And yeah, that's a brief overview of Crossways as a whole, and hopefully Rob will take over and take over from there. Yeah, this is Blue Gum Lane. So in the southern part, Julia, if you can perhaps show the cursor, the restaurant is to the south there. Yeah, there we go. But this graphic just illustrates the sort of mixed use, I almost want to say mixed use vibe of Crossways, where the restaurant is to the south, where the cursor is. There's a restaurant, the homeowners association, offices might be there, but there's also a filling station that has been approved there, not yet constructed. Some workshops, rather not use the term industrial, but workshops. It's from where we would need to build Crossways with the basics. I'm talking earth, rock, stone type of thing. And just north of that on Blue Gum Lane is where the agriculture is interwoven into the fabric of the place, where you completely, when you move through Crossways, continual exposed to nature, agriculture. Yeah, that's the idea of Crossways in a nutshell. And I think the last slide is Hub Central, and these are available. A couple have been sold and soon to be developed. But here you're right next to the N2. Realize again that you're 20 minutes from PE. I think fantastic opportunities for anybody that can essentially see an opportunity to serve the region there, and especially to serve Crossways, the construction thereof, anything related to dairy, of course, but fresh fruit and produce from the Babajanskloof. You're at a Crossways here, so super accessible from a road infrastructural point of view. And I think, Louise, that's about it. I think that was my last slide.
Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you. And you can really hear and feel the passion towards the project as you explain it. And I think it's very nice to see that integrated nodes and how the various elements will work together in creating these secure, what you were calling hamlets or urban zones. We are just going to keep agri-urban zones. Just to keep the pace going and keep moving forward, a very important aspect around development in South Africa, as we all know, is what is the relationship, what is the actual development, what will the relationship be between the developer and of course the investors that are choosing to buy into this estate and develop their properties. So this is where Robert, our international flavor, comes in, and Robert, as I mentioned earlier, is the development manager. And he's just going to give us a bit of an idea of what that process will look like for you if you choose to invest. And then also touch on, as I see a number of questions coming in around what's the agricultural requirements and what happens if I'm not a farmer. So over to you, Robert.
Perfect. Hey, thank you very much. And good morning again, everyone. So just a brief little bit about me. As the development manager of Crossways, my job is really just to help translate Chris and Steph's vision and world-class design work into reality through the site development process and everything that entails. So to give you a little bit of background on my story, since I've got this funky accent, I'm the panel's resident Texan. I was raised in small town Texas, and I got my start in land development after serving as an officer in the U.S. Marine Corps. I was actually working full-time and studying for a post-grad degree back in 2015 when I first learned about Crossways. And within a few months, I was on a plane joining Chris and Steph as an intern. I joined the team full-time in January of this year, but in the meantime, I've had my hands on the acquisition and development of about 900 residential stands across 29 communities in Texas. Of course, we call them lots over across the pond. So now I've quit my job and I've sold my home and most of my worldly goods to be a part of this vision, just as Chris and Pat Mulder sold their home of 30 years to see it take shape. So I really believe that this is the future of rural development and that this team is the one to lead the way. But we need partners. So I'd like to help you all kind of wrap your arms around the project from the development perspective. And I see that Julia has already brought up the master plan, which is perfect. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is the illustrated master plan. I'm going to leave this visual up throughout the rest of my presentation so that you can kind of all take your time and get familiar with the town. And before jumping into the nuts and bolts of development, I'd like to highlight a few features that prove up front that Crossways is something really special. So first things first, if you just look at that sea of green that's on the screen there, as Steph kind of alluded to, a third of the land is left to nature as conservation space. A third is left for irrigated agriculture at every scale, and a remaining third is used as the development footprint. Our team analyzed the slopes, the drainage pathways and wetlands, the geotechnical profile, soil quality, vegetation types, and every treasure that Mother Nature bestowed upon the site. And then they let the land decide where the buildings and the roads belong, not the other way around. Another thing is, so you might be thinking, if you've just got 1/3 of the area used for development, you might wonder, well, is the remaining land only going to be accessible to the ultra wealthy? It's not the case. By using this clustered spatial layout and a mix of uses and densities, we're making good use of that final third, and we're allowed to get, produce enough income out of that third to open doors to every type of household and every income level. Another aspect I'd like to talk about is that, COVID-19 has reminded the real estate industry that those quintessentially rural values of resilience and self-sufficiency are not mere amenities or marketing gimmicks. They're requirements for maintaining our quality of life. Crossways already offers all of the services expected in estate communities, high-speed fiber internet, municipally treated water, grid electricity, etc. However, we've also begun providing redundant services that align with our goals to become anti-fragile and to go beyond sustainability towards true regenerative development. So for some examples, wastewater is currently treated and recycled for irrigation via a constructed wetland that's on site kind of near the entrance along Blue Gum Lane. By the end of this year, we're going to begin construction of a potable water treatment plant, actually multiple treatment plants, which draw water from the Van Stadens River. We've already got the pipeline in place and it's already producing water. Rainwater harvesting is mandatory for all residences, and solar panels are currently in use on individual homes. And we're soon going to begin exploring larger scale solar and wind farms. And talking about resiliency, no community that relies solely on globalized long-distance supply chains for their food sources are resilient in any sense. This is another messy truth that's really been highlighted by COVID-19, especially here in Texas. The term AgriHood typically implies a monolithic farm that's tacked onto an estate community. Typically, it has a team of professional farmers that offer direct or subscription sales of produce to residents. And that's a step in the right direction, but that model still encourages us to remain disconnected from our food sources and also all the joys of pastoral agrarian living. So Chris, Dr. Mulder, a former farmer himself, is taking the next step. By scattering a network of leasable, irrigated farm parcels throughout every cluster and hosting on-site farm workshops, we're bringing farming back to the center of society. And we're enabling residents to slow down and get their hands dirty to whatever extent they desire. And, one more concept before we get into the nuts and bolts of what's going on the ground here. Crossways is recognized as South Africa's first rural new town. And healthy towns only grow in one way, and that's good old-fashioned incremental development. Every cluster of homes or line of shops starts with one pioneer who sees a need and delivers a solution. So our development sequence operates on that simple principle, and we have 3 secret weapons that grant us the patience and the flexibility that we need to let the market direct our growth. The first one is that we've developed a central infrastructure spine. That spine runs from the main entry to the town center, which you can trace, if you're looking at the master plan, from the N2 flyway up the western boundary and around the central irrigation pivot to the Castle Ridge neighborhood, which is the colorful neighborhood kind of dead center in the plan. There are a few areas, there are a few areas on site, very few areas that we can't reach quickly and cost effectively. Second, we've got an integrated design and build team. You know, CMAI architects and Crossways Ventures work hand in hand every day. And that allows us to rapidly execute our vision and those of our partnering developers on the ground with very little transmission loss or quality loss. And then the third thing, and maybe the most important to a lot of the folks who are potential homeowners or investors on this webinar, Crossways has just 2 equity partners, and debt is kept to a minimum, 0 actually at the moment. So this keeps us lean and mean, but more importantly, what it does is it provides us patient capital that's capable of investing in the long-term enduring value of Crossways first. We have the flexibility and the patience and the funding to make good decisions that are in our long-term interest. So now let's get into the nuts and bolts after me running my gums for a while here. What exactly is on the market here? At full build-out, Crossways will consist of 733 saleable urban with a diverse mix of uses as would be expected of any rural town. We're building 667 residential home sites in total, with just under 100 fully serviced home sites available today in the Castle, North Rocks, and Ridge neighborhoods, which again are the colorful clusters that are located just north of that central irrigation pivot. 30 homes are already occupied, and the current offering includes 7 different housing types with stand areas between 220 and 2,600 square meters currently. Pricing is between $275,000 and $1,875,000 rand. That's the stand pricing, earth pricing. So future phases will add stands in excess of 1 hectare, but in the meantime, it's possible to purchase multiple contiguous stands, and we're currently taking a few of those offers. The mixture of layouts, the sizes, and price mix all ensure a dynamic, multi-generational neighborhood. So we've got a home for every type of household at every stage of life and every income level. And a major feature that's aiding us in that quest for multi-generational living is the Woodridge College and Prep School. That's located immediately southeast of the Van Stadens River Bridge, which you can see in the southeast corner of the plan. This world-class institution has offered classes for children as young as 3 years of age to young adults entering their college years for the past 75 years. So in addition to the residential property that we've got on site, Crossways also offers 66 stands that are zoned for either commercial, mixed use, hotel, light industrial, and agribusiness uses. The commercial and mixed use opportunities are centered in the Crossways Town Center, which is the dense cluster of stands that's located immediately northwest of the central irrigation pivot and south of the cattle crossing. It's labeled Crossways on the plan. Additional commercial nodes are found in the Sunnyside Station and the farmyard areas that are in the far northwest corner of the site. We're finalizing the town center and the Sunnyside access road designs as we speak. The Crossways Country Kitchen, which some of you hopefully have visited at this point. I know I have. They went and grabbed their pot pies. It's delicious. That's located near the sales center at the entrance to the site. That kitchen's enjoyed regular business from current residents, visitors that are traveling the N2 between Jeffreys Bay and Port Elizabeth, and regular throngs of mountain bikers, runners, and outdoor sports enthusiasts who come out and enjoy the 200 kilometers of trails that center on Crossways and are professionally maintained already by a group called 3 Rivers Trails. So I think, when it comes to commercial and mixed use opportunities, additional restaurants, retail shops, entertainment venues, and neighborhood scale services will be right at home in those areas. And supplementing that retail demand for Crossways, in addition to 667 rooftops that are going to be there, and all the visitors that are coming in from both major towns that are 20 minutes away, we've got 3 stands that are earmarked for hotel uses. And you're going to hear from Mr. Gavin Mcinnis later on, but we're well on our way to securing a full-service 150-room hotel that overlooks the Van Stadens River on an area that we call the Island. You can see that located near the eastern boundary of the site. And moving on to light industrial or workshop uses and agribusiness, Our Sunnyside Road project has opened up a first cluster that's found in that farmyard area up in the northwest corner of the site. Here we're focused on value-add agricultural enterprises that are going to supplement our microeconomy. So, think aquaculture, small-scale poultry production, and training for enterprising farmers. A second opportunity that exists is the workshop, which Steph alluded to before me. So that's the cluster of blue and gray stands that's located just north of the N2. We began grading the access road to this section this month, and we're seeking partners currently that are interested in delivering maybe regional scale or destination commercial enterprises that would benefit from the fantastic marketing window the N2 creates. So again, building material suppliers, plant nurseries, outdoor sports outfitters. Heck, I wouldn't mind seeing a brewery or tap room pop up personally. It'd be pretty nice. So what have we done in 2020? The national lockdown hasn't kept us from consistently achieving our milestones this year. We've primarily been focused on infrastructure improvements. We've completed the paving, drainage, and landscaping that leads from the main entry into the Castle Ridge neighborhood. That runs along our central infrastructure spine that I talked about earlier. That includes unique street lights that are handcrafted by a local craftsman. They're very unique. We've been clearing alien vegetation. That's ongoing. We've been using the resulting timber from that alien clearance to build various structures around town, such as the irrigation tank housings on our first urban agriculture plots, which are being constructed as we speak. And so we've got a farm training workshop for residents on the calendar, and our weekend farmers markets will resume shortly. So just to wrap it up, I hope you'll all come see it for yourself. You can tell we're all passionate, we're all dedicated, and we hope to see you out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert. Thank you very much for bringing some light to how this development is going to roll out on the ground for investors. So very important in the South African landscape as well is the relationship between the development or the town and the neighboring communities. And so we've brought Dudley Janneke to the forefront now to just discuss what strategy was put in place, the rollout of that particular strategy, and then of course what long-term sustainable practices are in place when it comes to job creation and how Crossways will support the greater community. Dudley, if I can hand the reins over to you.
Thank you, Louise. I just want to briefly talk on the environmental side as well. The Department of Economic Development and Environmental Affairs as the environmental competent authority issued an authorization for Crossways development. So what does this really mean? This basically means that the development satisfied the requirements of the National Environmental Management Act and the environmental regulations prescribed for environmental impact assessments. Next slide. Next slide, please. So during the environmental impact assessment process, numerous species studies were undertaken, which we've listed here below. And the recommendations from these studies informed the project layout and design that Stephen Robert was alluding to, which basically allowed the DNA of the site to determine the opportunities and the constraints of what the site has to offer. And this really resulted in your three distinct land uses: agriculture, conservation, and human settlements. Next slide. Even during the construction and the operational phase of the project, we had to make sure that the environment is protected. And for this reason, an environmental management plan was approved by the Environmental Regulatory Authority. During the construction phase, an independent environmental control officer has been appointed to ensure that all the environmental issues are properly managed. Next slide. We can actually skip this slide because Robert already spoke to the various opportunities from a renewable energy point of view, as well as the compulsory stuff that we have been dealing with as part of the overall project. With respect to community accountability or community involvement, it is a prerequisite of the Environmental Act that you have to engage in a comprehensive manner with the communities. So the community involvement was an important component of the EIA process. Thornhill community and Luri community was then identified as beneficiary communities for this specific project. Even the farm laborers that were staying, on the site, during the time of the process, were identified as beneficiaries for farm houses with their own title deeds. So all of that has been brought into the way in which the development has been packaged. In addition, a community trust was established that consists of trustees from the development side and also trustees from the community side. And these, the trust will be the beneficiary of streams of money and income, that will come from the percentage of the sales of each of the urban will be transferred into the community trust, as well as a percentage of all the resales into perpetuity to ensure positive cash flow. The community will then have the opportunity to identify their own community projects that will then be funded from these monies that is being transferred into the trust fund. Various job creation opportunities will be made available for the local communities, as well as opportunities for skills development is definitely a prerequisite in terms of the way in which the project was packaged. Part of the way in which we were looking at how to identify the skills within the community is to undertake a skills audit to determine what kind of skills are available within the community, and then to identify the gaps between the skills available and the opportunities on the other side. And from that point of view, it would also allow for various, opportunities with respect to job creation. During the process, there will be various opportunities related to training, and that is throughout the life cycle of the project. Various entrepreneurial opportunities have been identified and will further be identified with respect to discussions with the community as well. In terms of entrepreneurial opportunities that has been identified thus far has been related to the refuse removal, on the maintenance of the landscaping side, alien clearing, street lighting, but there's a lot more opportunities that will be identified for the community to establish entrepreneurial relationships, with this specific project. And based on the above, what we discussed, we believe that this project achieved a very strong balance between social, economic, and biodiversity. Thank you very much, Louise.
Thank you so much, Dudley. And I think that's such a key point here. New developments or new town create job opportunities, absolutely, especially in the construction side of it. But to be able to create that ongoing opportunity, that ongoing value is so important, so that these individuals are able to start their own businesses. Teach a man to fish or teach a woman to fish, I think is such a great expression. But now that we've spoken about the development, we know, a little bit more about how it's going to be managed. I think now it's time to bring in a homeowner, somebody who absolutely understands what it's like to live there. And Brian has very kindly supplied us with a short video clip that shows the environment and some of the outdoor lifestyle aspects to the development. If Julie could pop that on for us, and then we'll be handing over to Brian, who will just give us a rundown of what it's like to live at Crossways.
I never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. It's Brian Fanikak here, one of the residents of Crossways Farm Village and the CEO of the Rhino Group of Companies. Yeah, I've got the easy part, personally, of explaining why I invested here and why I live here. You know, we actually started out by creating House Rhino. We were trying to showcase all of the different elements and technologies that our group are involved in. And Crossways just seemed to be the perfect location and environment to be able to do that in. So we built House Rhino right at the outset, one of the very first homes to be built on the development. And the house is a totally off-grid building that actually showcases being off-grid of electricity, water, sewage treatment, and many other aspects. So it was used initially. I did not live here permanently. I just come out for weekends, but it was used initially as a show house and for development and research for universities and that, both in South Africa and around the world. I then moved out to Crossways 3 years ago and started living here permanently, which really changed my experience. And as Crossways had developed a lot over that period of time as well. Crossways is really positioned extremely well. It's 20 minutes away from Jeffreys Bay with beaches available. You've got plenty of other beaches around here. You've got the likes of Cape St. Francis. So you're able to be out in the mountains at Crossways or at your home, and 20 minutes later you could actually be surfing on the beach. It's really fantastic from that perspective. You've got 15 minutes away from Bay West Mall, which is a 90,000 square meter shopping mall that has all the different shops that you could ever wish for and from a shopping experience. You've got restaurants,
Brian, we've lost you there for a second. Okay, go.
So with the Bovians being that close, you're able to have a short day trip or take it and spend a weekend away in the Bovians, with lots of small little towns that have got historic value and history and that on the way that you're capable of also utilizing just for a short day trip. You've got private game parks and lodges that are close by that you're able to go to for day trips or for weekends. So there's plenty to do that is close by to Crossways, not just within Crossways and the close proximity, but within day trip short commutes. Crossways, I think the main issue is being a community, a very, very strong community. It's a farming community. You've got the internal Crossways community and the surrounding communities that are all part of the local farming community. You've got Woodridge School that is 5 minutes away, that has got world-class amenities. And that is also a very close-knit community that you form a part and parcel of, even if you don't have children there. And I think the farming community are exceptional. You actually have a strong sense of belonging by living here with the people that live around us. Farmers that might be 20 minutes away in the middle of the mountains, you happen to see and share a beer with them on a weekly basis. It's fantastic, that strong belonging that you have with that country feel and farming community. Then we have Three Rivers Trails, which started off a number of years ago, being built by Brett and Grant Puttigill, local farmers, together with Didier from Zebra Lodge. These trails are really world-class and extend across a great part of the area, across the mountains and that. All the trails start and finish at Crossways Country Kitchen, which is within Crossways itself. You have hiking trails that has grown in the last 2 years, where you've got families coming to hike. You've got avid hikers that actually come out here on a regular basis, and you've got short hikes from 6 kilometers through to 10 kilometers or 20 kilometers in different routes up and over the mountain or just through the forests. You've got running trails. The trail running has grown over the past 2 years enormously, where you have short runs that are family orientated from 6 kilometers to 12 kilometers to 22 kilometers to 42 kilometer. There's events that are held where you'll have the maximum distance being 42 kilometers, a full marathon with 1,900 meters of elevation through pristine mountain trails. They are really exceptional and world class. There's an event that would have happened this year already, an ultra marathon of 100 miler. That's going to happen, but it's been planned and the routes are already marked out for that. Then you've got mountain biking. The mountain biking trails is where it all started. You've got over 200 kilometers of trails that extend from Crossways, with 18 kilometers being inside Crossways itself, and the balance of all the routes are outside of Crossways. You've got short routes, once again, family orientated, 6 kilometers. You've got another route that's a single route of 18 kilometers, another one of 30 kilometers, one of 66 kilometers, the longest individual route being 88 kilometers. And you can combine any one of those routes together. So if you wanted to do more than 88 kilometers, you're more than welcome to, because you can include another segment and actually extend your rides. The routes are not only on roads, but a lot of it is on single track, both from an easy single track that's family orientated through to very technical a single track, which is there for the most experienced mountain bikers around the world. A lot of the people that actually come and ride in the Cape Epic come and train here. So it's perfect for experienced riders. You've got flowing downhill single track that we have the likes of Potty, who's a local resident that rides. He is the top South African rider, just under Greg Minnar, and he rides on the international platform representing South Africa. And Potty's out here on a regular basis, not only to ride, but also to do training courses with children and adults alike. So you've really got avid people that are coming out here that are top cyclists. You've got races that actually are ridden out here. You've got the Longmore Classic, which is one of the oldest races in the country, and it starts and finishes. It's just a one-day race, but it's at Crossways on the routes. You've got the Pied de Plet, which is a 4-day race that starts and finishes here. It either ends at the restaurant, or it starts at the restaurant, depending on whether it's P to Plet or Plet to P. I think the most important aspect that I need to get across is safety. Not safety within Crossways itself at your home, but safety on the trails and in the mountains. I think this is pretty unique in the country, where you can actually be out on the trails within the 200 kilometers plus on your own, be it a woman on her own or a man on his own. I often, and even on this past Sunday, saw a woman all by herself in the middle of the mountains. And in fact, on a 55-kilometer ride, I only saw her and then people when I got back to within Crossways itself. So it is super, super safe, and more people are coming here and riding and using and running and hiking because of exactly that. They feel safe and secure. It's on private farmland and it's on private forestry land. So and that's very, very well maintained by Three Rivers Trails, which is a non-profit organization that are constantly building new trails and creating new routes and new technical dimensions to the trails as well. So personally, it's a place that anybody that loves the outdoors wouldn't like to ever leave. And I can actually say that from my perspective, I'd certainly never want to live anywhere else. It's a perfect place for anybody to come and invest in.
With all investments and all developments in towns such as Crossways, it's always important to look at where we're going to create financial sustainability. And that's really where Gavin Mcinnis has come in. He's the CEO of the Orient Express, and he's bringing in a really interesting and dynamic tourism opportunity for long-term sustainability of the project. Gavin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Again, I cannot express how enamored I am of this amazing, beautiful, pristine development. It's truly one of a kind in the world. I think everybody on the development team shares my passion. It's not just about the development. I think Brian sort of alluded to the mountain biking. But you very much at the portal or the door of the Baviaanskloof Mega Reserve, you have 500,000 hectares of nature surrounding you. I mean, where in the world will you find it? You know, that's 1.2 million acres. And then what where we partnering is mainly on the, I'm a rail developer. With hospitality infused into the rail. So we partnered with Narina Sky of Apple Express. She's done a tremendous amount of work getting the reviving and keeping the little train that can, as we call it, going. And we obviously equity partners in the venture and various other rail heritage associations across the country and across Africa. We have our own developments and our own rail experiences with, partnering with international hotel developers such as Accor and others. So that's why the group is called Compagnie Africaine de Wagon-Lit, the African Company of Sleeper Coaches. And for easy, you know, it's a sort of the generic name is Orient Express Africa. We very at this specific section, which you can see on the background, is the island section of the development. It's between the Crossways Gorge and the Thesen Gorge, and I think very much Steph said, it's gorgeous. You're looking at where the, if you can go onto the slide of the actual Thesen, the narrow gauge bridge, please. There should be a slide. So basically it would, connecting from the Port Elizabeth International Airport right through to the development on rail. That's 29 miles to Sunnyside Station, but we'll have a separate station connecting the hotel to Port Elizabeth Airport directly. The narrow gauge bridge is the tallest narrow gauge bridge in the world. It's 195 meters between abutments, 777.4 meters from the river, using 574 tons of steel, and this was erected in 1905, connecting the Lumkloof with a lot of agricultural commerce coming out of Hankie and Patensi, and the area is, the fruit that you get there is just magnificent. So the railway line will connect with Port Elizabeth. Hopefully it becomes a centre of exchange, but on the hospitality side, we're very excited about putting up a very, very unique hotel development on this beautiful tract of land. We obviously are taking the greatest care in preserving its natural integrity. That is why people would like to enjoy a weekend or a week away from it all, but be a part of it all, as Dr. Chris always says. If you could just perhaps move on to the next slide. So the development as such comprises of self-sustaining villas connected to the hotel facility. Steph was again very, very instrumental in assisting us with the development framework, taking care of the climate, the best view, vantages, perspectives of this development, and we're very excited about putting this together. If you could move on, I'm going to be very fast. So the development section will comprise that on the island section, we're calling it peninsula, because it's obviously it's a part of the development, but it's quite separate. So if you move on, you'll see the various different components of the main frames. The red area is the main hotel, conference center, restaurant, spa facility, and then also the blue area is the individual clusters, and then it connects to self-service departments that is connected to the hospitality app. So you could basically sit in your room, get your laundry done, get your food ordered. We'll obviously integrate a lot of the agricultural elements where people could pick their own crops at the restaurants, and it's going to be quite magnificent. If you could move on. You could just continue as you go on. So the whole development is derives, the concept is to be inspired by nature. We're very inspired by Rivendell from The Lord of the Rings. You can see that the area is very similar in design ethos. There's old Frodo, if you could give him a skip. But we're definitely very excited about the development. We're very, very committed to our local heritage. We're inspired by, we took our design inspiration from Pyrenees using Art Deco elements. These are, you could purely see the structure, architectural beauty, symmetry in the trees, and that basically forms the architectural principle for the design elements that we're integrating into the hotel and apartment units. It's basically a abode where you could reside yourself in nature, be part of nature, get away from it, in a very beautiful, serene environment. So you can move on to the next slide. Again, that's the a typical beautiful African scene. We inspired by international style developments, integrating a lot of the architectural. Sorry for that video. It's I took it myself. If you could move on. Very much, you could see the integration of the architecture into nature. We don't want to oppose what Mother Nature has done best, is we want to enhance and integrate into that area. These are existing structures at Crossways, showing the abundance of bird life, natural life. It truly is a magnificent area, and we would like to add value where we can. If you could move on to the next one. So the exterior design elements incorporate, again, natural elements. We're trying to develop a structure using natural, organic, ecologically sensitive units, where you could be inspired by nature. Again, we very much want to limit our footprints, be careful of what we what we do to the environment, but we want to be part of the environment. If you move on to the next slide. So again, the natural elements are very important. It's integrating into nature. It's absolutely essential to create a sense of harmony, a sense of serenity. I'm very much an adjective guy, and you definitely get that sense of feeling when you're at that beautiful property, that you could add a lot of value to that beautiful stretch of land. If you could move on to the next. So again, the pool design, is that we want to create infinity spaces where you immerse yourself into nature. You want to sort of relax. You want to integrate into and find a sense of balance. And I think the spa elements, the pool elements, the design elements is all about suffusing nature. So although the development is quite dense, you're quite separated from each other. You get a sense of serenity. You find peace and calm in this beautiful environment. But get you 20 minutes away from Port Elizabeth, close to the airport. You're connected on the rail, and obviously you're in a malaria-free area. Wonderful temperate climate. You couldn't have asked for a better area. Could you, the next slide, please. Again, so a lot of the design elements is that you actually can be integrated into the area. Your pool is part of the architecture of the various different units. These are self-sustaining units within the hotel, so it forms self-service apartments. Again, with the infinity concept on the gorge. Again, these design elements have already sort of been echoed in the landscape at Crossways. We're very passionate about the environment. We want to leave a natural organic footprint, and I think this is what the Crossways from Starton Hotel and Spa is all about. Moving on. Again, the idea again is that we want to link the gorge. The natural design elements, interior is warm, comfortable, inviting, rustic, rural setting, being part of nature, finding your inner peace and harmony. It's all the Zen elements that that makes people want to be in an area. It's about the sensory experience that Dr. Chris spoke about. It's about the natural environment. It's about economic returns. It's about providing a wonderful architectural framework in this magnificent setting. So in essence, the development is integrates with the rail community, and also it also integrates with our hospitality offering, and we wish to bring this to the Crossways development, where we form part of the ethos of what Crossways is about. The spa in itself is where you can get all the luxury in this beautiful environment, and that's basically the essence, is to provide a wonderful environment as such, where you could break away from it all. As you can see, we've got a wonderful rich mood board. The outdoor activities, obviously, for a hotel is infinite, given the fact that there is so much to do in the environment, and we just basically a springboard to that wonderful adventure activities for the area.
Well, thank you so much, Gavin. It really is quite spectacular what you're planning on building, and it will definitely bring in an enormous amount of additional revenue from a tourism perspective. Thank you so much for everyone for being patient with us. I know we're going slightly over time, but we just really wanted to bring Peter in here just to wrap up the benefits. Just a quick wrap up. There's been a lot of information that's been shared. during the course of the morning. So Peter's going to come in, wrap that up. And then there's one or two questions that I think we need to just deal with before we bring the webinar to an end. Peter?
Yes, hi. Okay. So that was quite a lot of information, which is exactly why developers need marketing. Basically what marketing does is we take all of that information and then we distill it down to the essence of the development itself. So usually when you do marketing for development, you hang the message on some sort of a benefit. So the main benefit. And strangely enough, if you look at most marketing places, you'll find that benefit underneath their name. So you'll have a name and then it'll tell you what they are. They are a golf estate. And then you're going to focus on golfing mostly. What's a beach estate? And you mean you're going to see that as a beach estate, it's probably going to be very close to the beach or on the beach, or it's an eco estate, something like that. And that's why you've usually got like one thing that you can hang your entire marketing campaign on, which makes it quite simple, right? Also, just for all the developers out there, a solar panel on your estate does not give it eco status. You must just clear that up before we go any further with anything. Okay, so in marketing, we call that selling the sizzle and not the steak. Just another way of putting it, if you have a boat, for instance, if your development was a boat and you wanted to sell the boat trip, you don't sell it by giving me the dimensions of the boat. It's like so big and it's made out of wood. I don't know, it's like a boat of the 16th century, apparently. But what you do is you sell me on the voyage, the places that we're going to visit, the islands that we're going to see on this boat, right? It's the sizzle, like I say, not the steak. And here lies the problem with Crossways, because it's got just so much. Just to be clear, I mean, this isn't some high-rise in Midrand where the biggest benefit is that you're living on top of the Mall of Africa. That's not an investment. That's a shopping experience. What we're talking about here is a whole other ballgame. At Crossways, the sizzle literally is the steak. So if you haven't been paying attention, I'm going to distill Crossways for you in a neat little marketing list. And yes, I'm going to read this because seriously, you can remember it all. Okay, so Crossways is 520 hectares of healthy, sustainable living. It's mountains and rivers and farm fresh produce grown on your doorstep if you're not growing it yourself. It's a working dairy farm. It's going off-grid while still being connected to the web via fibre. It's got its own municipality managing the water, sewage and electricity. It's safe and secure with an outdoor lifestyle bar none, including hiking and mountain biking and trail running and fishing. On top of that, it provides training and jobs for the nearby Thornhill community. There's a commercial note, a light industrial area called the workshop, a hotel coming, conservation areas that constitutionally cannot change, agriculture and of course residential. Add to that the views and the private school literally across the road. And now you're starting to understand why doing marketing for Crossways is so easy and at the same time so difficult. Which brings me to one more point. Earlier in the webinar, Paul went out asking what is the most important attribute when looking to invest in an estate. I've got one important one and two less obvious ones that I would like to share with you, which are quite telling. The first one and the important one is the developer. You must make sure that the developer has a good track record at least, so that it's not like a fly-by-night kind of developer that's just in it for the money, and the moment everything's sold out, they go, okay, well, sayonara, I'm off, I'm taking my money, and you guys are all stuck with HOA trying to figure everything else out. So I'm at Crossways. I'm pretty sure this was mentioned earlier. These are the same people who developed Thesen Islands in Knysna. And this is possibly one of the most successful developments in South Africa, if not the world. They literally know what they're doing. Okay, the second thing to look out for is the architects. What have they done? Who are they? What does the architecture look like? Again, I think Dr. Chris mentioned it earlier. This is not, the architecture needs to be something special. And in this case, it truly is something special. In fact, it's so unique and so beautiful that I had to come up with a new name for it, for exactly what they designed. Something like this didn't exist before. I'm not going to tell you what the name is. You're going to have to go to the website to figure that one out. Now, see, that's good marketing right there. Okay, and then lastly, you have to look at the marketing spend. This is not a very obvious one, but that will tell you whether these guys are really serious about what they do. You know, are they just, what does the website look like? Are they doing anything else? Are they doing radio? Are they doing billboards? Where can you see them? That's a very important part, because when a developer spends money on property marketing, you know that they're serious about it. And make no mistake, what we're doing right here, right now, is proper marketing, which means they know what they're doing. Okay, I've talked quite a bit and really fast. I think I'm
Thanks, Peter.
just going to mute myself.
Thank you so much, Peter. So just to wrap it up, and I know, folks, we've gone a little bit over time, and thank you so much for highlighting the benefits of the development. Just a couple of quick questions, and maybe my first question is for yourself, Chris. One that's come up on several groups is the levy structure. So this is something that's been under discussion, and do you feel perhaps you could just give us a little bit of an understanding on how the levies are going to work within the community?
Thanks, Louise. The levy structure has been implemented by us, the developers, and the Homeowners Association. It's based on a formula. It's a combination of a fixed rate. There's the surface area of your property and the price of your property, and there's a formula that works out. I think our levies are very competitive at the moment. They're in fact low, and I'm sure that the levy structure won't put anybody off in anything. I can't give numbers, but there's a fixed levy that's worked out per formula. And so far, it's worked very well. The homeowners are well established. They've got reserve funds in the bank, which is uncommon in today's municipalities, because the developer and the homeowner together is the municipality, and they manage it very well, very, very, very efficiently. And like I said, they've got funds in the bank, reserve funds already.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. A second question that's come up, and it's a slightly difficult one, not difficult to answer, but interesting to answer. And Steph, I'd like to ask you this question. So we spoke about it yesterday, retirement and medical facilities. I know that this is an integrated community, and as you mentioned yesterday, we don't really want to place the older community, older generation in a locked up retirement facility. But at the same time, you know, there are folks that like to live in a more secured environment for specific to their age, and their medical facilities are important. What will Crossways' approach be towards retirement and medical facilities?
Thanks, Louise. Yeah, I mentioned also yesterday, there's been several approaches from various retirement development potential solutions, but my standard answer to this is, I mean, what we're trying to create with any village like this, any truly authentic village, it caters for the multi-generational. So the elderly people are part of the neighborhood fabric. All of the houses do have granny flats. Not all of the houses, a lot of them do have granny flats, but the idea is here, not at Crossways, not to separate the elderly in a retirement enclave as such. They remain part of the community. Yeah, it's at the moment there are several approaches that have been made. A final solution hasn't really been on offer yet, but that is hopefully where any of the developers out there or potential investors, whether it be a doctor or somebody in the health industry, where they can come up, and we need to build this village together. yeah, home care seems to be, and maybe Chris can also touch on that, home care seems to be the prime sort of approach that we'll take, that people can get older within their houses, typically go into smaller houses with shared nurses and shared home care. I think that's the main principle.
I think it very much follows the city, a town structure. If you look at something like Fishhook, which is a naturally recurring aging community, where you've got different ages coming in and then suppliers supporting those various, lifestyle, life phase type suppliers. Another big thing that's important to South Africans, Robert, is animals. We are a pet-friendly community, a pet-friendly country, and I've already had a few questions come up here. I know that we mentioned that there was a 2-dog minimum or 2-dog maximum, but on the larger plots of land, could family and homeowners have more animals than that? Maybe if you could just give us a little bit of background of the rules when it comes to ownership of pets, domestic pets, initially.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you for the question. And I've got an Australian Shepherd sitting next to me right now myself, so I can certainly understand that. The current HOA rules and regulations do limit the number of dogs to 2. Which is, I would say fairly standard in estate communities in South Africa. I will say I'll defer maybe to Steph or to Dr. Mulder regarding their intent for for things like livestock. Like we've said, we've worked in poultry and things of that nature in some of the agribusiness stands. But when it comes to backyard chickens and things of that nature, we are currently developing the farm regulations and kind of experimenting with what works and what doesn't work in a residential setting. We've got to balance giving people the freedom to have however many pets or livestock that they want, with also the need to be kind to your neighbors and to think about noxious uses and things like that. And so Chris and Steph, I don't know if y'all have any additional comments on that.
Thanks. Thank you, Robert. Yes. Also, people, parking and pets, the three P's of any community. I think we're sort of reaching the end of our webinar session. What I could ask, if you do have any questions that we haven't necessarily covered, please feel free to send them through to us. This webinar has been recorded and we will be sharing that playback with you. So if you would like to have a look at any more or listen to the content again, please feel free to contact any of us panelists. You can come through Estate Living and we'll happily connect you with Brian and the 3 Trails and Benches. I know we've had a number of questions come in for Brian regarding the mountain biking trails and 3 Rivers. So we'll happily send those through to Brian. Thank you so much, Gavin. We would like to know more about the hotel offering and what's happening with regards to the train rail. Dude, I would really enjoy unpacking a little bit more, Dudley, of what we're doing from a management of that trust and how those funds are going to be used and managed, and of course who will be keeping an eye on them. So thank you so much to everybody who's participated, to everybody that's joined us this morning. We're going to bring this webinar to a close, playing that video. Maybe you missed it when you first logged on this morning, but just to run through again what all the opportunities are available at Crossways and just to give you an overview of what the estate looks like. Thank you so much to everybody, and thank you to all the panelists. And Julie, if you could pop that video on, we'd be very grateful.